Have you ever wondered why the United States and Venezuela seem like cat and rat? They are once friends before now. The story goes back more than a century. In the early 20th century, Venezuela and the United States were not enemies. In fact, oil linked them as partners. When vast petroleum reserves were discovered in Venezuela around 1914, U.S. companies like Standard Oil quickly invested. By the mid-1900s, Venezuela became one of the largest oil exporters to the United States, and the relationship was mostly cooperative. During the Cold War, Venezuela stood with Washington against communism in Latin America. In 1960, Venezuela was even a founding member of OPEC, but it maintained close trade with the U.S. The friendship was visible. By the 1980s and 1990s, Venezuelan crude oil was fueling American cars and homes, and U.S. refineries were tied directly to Venezuelan state company PDVSA. But the tone shifted in 1999 when Hugo Chavez came to power. A charismatic soldier who launched the so-called Bolivarian Revolution, Chavez criticized U.S. foreign policy and promoted a vision of Latin American independence. In 2002, after a short-lived coup against him, which Chavez's supporters believed had tacit U.S. backing, mistrust deepened sharply. From then, Washington and Caracas no longer viewed each other as partners. Chavez began strengthening ties with U.S. rivals. In 2005, Venezuela signed large arms deals with Russia, acquiring Su-30 fighter jets and later the S-300 air defense system. He also directed billions of dollars in oil exports toward China, securing huge loans. By the late 2000s, Chavez was openly calling the U.S. imperialist while promoting alliances with Cuba, Iran, and Bolivia. When Nicolas Maduro succeeded Chavez in 2013, the relationship further soured. That same year, global oil prices collapsed, triggering an economic crisis. The U.S. responded with targeted sanctions beginning in 2015, citing human rights concerns. By 2017, sanctions extended to Venezuela's vital oil sector, cutting off much of its main revenue. The confrontation escalated in 2019. Following disputed elections, Washington recognized opposition leader Juan Guaidó as Venezuela's legitimate president. Dozens of U.S. allies in Europe and Latin America echoed this stance. Maduro, however, retained power with the backing of Russia, China, Cuba, and Iran. From that point, Washington and Caracas treated each other as outright adversaries. In 2020, the U.S. Department of Justice indicted Maduro and senior officials on narco-trafficking charges. Around the same time, Iranian tankers began delivering fuel to Venezuela despite U.S. sanctions, signaling open defiance. By 2023, there was a brief thaw. Washington granted limited licenses to Chevron to export Venezuelan oil, hoping for progress in political talks. But in 2024, Venezuela's election on July 28th was widely criticized as fraudulent by the opposition and international observers. Maduro claimed victory, while the U.S. and European Union questioned the process. Some Latin American countries, including Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico, urged dialogue rather than confrontation. The tension then spread to the regional map. Venezuela renewed its century-old claim over the oil-rich Essequibo region of Guyana, leading to friction. The U.S. and the U.K. expressed support for Guyana's sovereignty. Venezuela accused Washington of encirclement. Reports even suggested that Colombia warned the U.S. not to escalate militarily against Venezuela, fearing chaos on its own border. And now, in August 2025, the crisis has reached new waters. The United States deployed 3 Aegis destroyers and a submarine to the Caribbean, saying it was to secure regional stability. In response, Venezuela announced naval patrols and the use of drones to guard its coastline. So how did it come to this? From partners in oil a century ago to bitter adversaries shaped by ideology, sanctions, contested elections, and global rivalries. The United States sees Venezuela as a destabilizing hub linked to its rivals. Venezuela, meanwhile, sees Washington as an eternal meddler in its sovereignty. Behind the headlines lie the interests of oil, security, and regional influence, forces that have turned what was once friendship into a standoff, one that now plays out not only in politics and trade, but in the shadow of submarines and warships in the Caribbean. We must ensure our regional allies understand our commitment to stability. The deployments are strategic deterrents, not an escalation. Indeed, but we should not underestimate the ripple effect across Latin America. Venezuela's next moves could